Without words, without writings, without books, without arts, there will be no history and there could be no concept of humanity. Dedicated to the memory of the late Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the Memorial Park was built on a former British polo field where Ghana's independence was declared in 1957.
Show that after all, the black man is capable of managing the whole affairs.
Over the years, many have asked why governments gone by and present haven't managed the affairs of this museum as expected. The Memorial Park is dotted with trees planted by both living and dead heads of state of various countries on the continent. This is a mahogany tree. The lean, lonely, leafless tree was planted by the late president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, in 2007. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's belongings, such as the metal coffin in which his remains were conveyed to Ghana from Conakry, Guinea, the headless metal bust, and a dressing mirror are preserved in the museum. Just next to the museum is a bronze statue of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah vandalized during the 1966 coup.
There's an inscription right there I'm going to read to you and what exactly this statue indeed is all about. So this is the original statue of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, which stood in front of Parliament House opposite Old Polo Grounds, Accra, attacked by a mob, vandalized at his stance, now in the wake of a military with police coup d'etat on 24th February 1966, recovered for the National Museum in 1975. So this is Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's statue without the head. Now, you might be wondering where the head is. The head is right next to the vandalized statue. So I'm going to go to the head of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, which was this statue was destroyed during the 1966 coup. The head was recovered, but obviously destroyed as a result of the vandalism. So the head also has its own message right there too. It says the bronze head of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's original statue, which stood in front of the Old Parliament House, Accra, vandalized during the February 24, 1966 military and police coup d'etat. It was recovered and presented by a patriotic citizen to the Information Services Department, which in turn released it to the park on May 28, 2009, and it was mounted on the park on September 1, 2009. So a patriotic citizen found this head and returned it to the Information Services Department then in 1966.
One of the two vehicles used by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, a Cadillac, is preserved in a glass house located at the extreme end of the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. These two peacocks walk around, keeping each other company. The Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum comes alive during specific days when there are events here. The Nkrumah Mausoleum is supposed to have about 200 to 500 visitors daily. However, due to its current state and some challenges, the visitor rate has dropped drastically. The Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Creative Arts is also being urged to institute measures to improve domestic tourism. A leading member of the Osajifo project pleaded with government to pay more attention to this major tourist attraction.
It's a beautiful park, a beautiful mausoleum, but I think they should give more attention to it because the people that pass through this place every day, every week, should they pay much attention, it will become paradise.
The mausoleum houses the remains of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and his wife, Fatia Nkrumah. It is meant to represent an upside-down sword, which in the Akan culture is a symbol of peace. The mausoleum is clad from top to bottom with Italian marble, with a black star at its apex symbolizing unity. The current state of the museum is evident for all to see. This is the premises of the Ghana Museums and Monuments Board.
So I'm here at the National Museum Archaeology, Ethnography and Arts Center. It's the Ghana Museum and Monuments Board. Well, this is supposed to be the house of artifacts and monuments of historical importance to this country. Now I'm going to go in there and find out exactly what the state of this museum is.
A few months after our visit, the broken statues on the ground at the Heroes Park has been cleared. The museum building was opened on 5th March 1957 as part of Ghana's independence celebration. The official opening was performed by Duchess of Kent, Princess Marina. The National Museum has been closed since November 2015 for renovation. Almost 6 years on, it still remains closed.
This building has been shut down since November 2015 for renovation. The question is being asked whether we're taking our museum seriously and the preservation of our history as a country.
I sought to find out why. William Mai is the head of public affairs of the Ghana Museums and Monuments Board.
The institution itself has been woefully underfunded. There's no museum in the world that is self-sufficient on the entry fees. If you look at the current trends of how museums are, states have to support them. These are institutions that define you. It's a one-stop shop that when you get into, you get a snapshot of what the country represents from their generation to their discard behavior. You can see a snapshot of it in the museum. Nobody will tell you it's because of the way things are organized. But this is a museum in which it will be difficult to establish that because in itself, I don't know, the last time we had this conversation, the museum was still closed, and it's still closed. It's been closed for reorganization and renovation, the building, since 2015. And almost 6 years now, and we've still not been able to open it. Fundamentally, due to maybe funding and other issues.
The state of deterioration of the National Museum reflects what is happening to most of Ghana's museums and monuments across the country. Just down the road from the National Museum is Ghana's Museum of Science and Technology, established in 1963. The Museum of Science and Technology opened its doors in 1965. The aim of establishing the museum was to create awareness of past and present developments in science and technology by Ghanaians. A state of deterioration, a pale shadow of what should be the Science and Technology Museum for a country with lots of scientists and technology innovators. Inside the museum, just a few items were on display. A few exhibits in a library are the items you will find in the museum. Some Ghanaians throughout history have invented many things and have made some major scientific breakthroughs. Unfortunately, there is no evidence of the great achievement of Ghanaian scientists and technology innovators in this museum. A huge space with very little to show.
This building, as you see there, not much activity takes place here, and in fact, from our observations over a one-week period, from what we gather from the people here, they sometimes have no visitors coming in. Now, we got in there and the items there, gathering dust, some abandoned, some you see outside there at the mercy of the weather. Questions have been raised about the commitment that governments over the period have shown improving on the state of our Science and Technology Museum. And the evidence is here with the state that this building finds itself in. It remains to be seen what exactly will be done to turn the fortunes of this National Museum of Science and Technology.
Kojo Yankah is a former Minister of State, an author, historian, and founder of Africa University College of Communications, AUCC.
When we have museums and monuments board under government, there's no other body that can lead it. It's government. And you can raise the necessary funds to build a museum if we put the right priority attention on it. So it is an obligation.
One would have expected more exhibits in the Science and Technology Museum of Ghana. William Mai speaks for the board.
It was set up to use the same material cultural heritage that were generated within the country, the artworks, the ethnographic material, the archaeological evidence, to re-engineer the Ghanaian, to have that self-belief in him or herself. But as it stands now, because the institution itself has been bereft with a lot of issues, it has not been, this particular objective has not been effectively implemented, in the sense that leadership in the institution has become a major problem.
Museums and monuments bring to life the history of every country. The lack of commitment by various governments to preserve Ghana's history, according to historians, is worrying.
If you travel all over the world, it's only in museums that you learn about the people, the art, the culture, the history, the struggles. You go to South Africa, almost every major city, you have something to talk about the apartheid, so that children will not forget. Here in Ghana, go through our museums, and it is a sad story. I know that efforts have been made. I know that educators have been trained. I know that people have worked in those buildings. But the way and their attitude towards our own museums is so bad that you wonder whether we are serious as a people. We have not preserved anything. Our children don't have role models. Our children cannot quote who our leaders have been. They do not know who our artists have been. Great composers, great designers, great architects, great artists. When it comes to arts and crafts, we got great names in Ghana. You struggle before you get information about any of these.
Visited Jamestown, a town prominent in Ghana's history and fight for independence. The story of Jamestown began with the erection of James Fort by the British in 1673 to 1674. The British fort was the last European trading post to be erected in Accra.
This is the James Fort, built in 1673 by the British to serve as a trading post. Now, until 1998, this place was still serving as a prison here in Accra. And this inscription you see right there, James Fort Prison, was this signpost way back in the colonial era. And it still served that purpose as a prison until 1998. Now, we're going to go in there, go through the underground tunnel that served as the way through which these slaves were taken. Stay with us.
It was the smallest of the three forts and was built about 1.5 miles from the Dutch fort. The site for the fort was leased in 1672 to the Royal African Company by the Gamanche Ogankoi. King James I of Great Britain granted a royal charter to the company to build the fort and give permission to name it after himself. A lighthouse was built near the James Fort in 1871. It was rebuilt in 1892, and a breakwater was added to it at the beginning of the 20th century. The lighthouse still offers an incredible panoramic view of surrounding areas.
British River, if I share no Baba, we are going to poor libation. Jamestown, you know about leadable. No cafe, no piano. But you know,
you come around.
You come around. So if you are in a top, I'll be now. No, come here, be now. So come no about me here. Kamiti. No Jamestown be any guide or Blofume can be fair.
They formed the first man-made harbor on the coast and confirmed Jamestown status as an important export center for slave trade in Ghana. This is the underground that actually leads straight to the shores of the sea, and then directly the slaves are then sent to their slave masters. So this is this path, or this underground is actually the source of the pathway. So we're going to get in there and then we see exactly how it's like.
You want to go? Yeah. Okay.
We're down here. This is the underground, leads straight to the seashore, and then you understand what happens is that they just get onto the ship. I mean, the slaves get onto the ship, and then they are transported to their slave masters. It's really, really warm here.
Potable water was brought into the city in 1914 and is commemorated by a monument near the James Fort.
So what
she's saying is that this particular well, which is a connection to the underground tunnel that you saw us right earlier in there, that actually served as that particular tunnel through which the slaves were taken through to the castle, and then sometimes straight to the ship, and then is another entrance in transporting the slaves. Now she tells me that when water is stored in there, the water is so clean that they're able to use it.
Kojoyanka is the author of the book From Jamestown to Jamestown.
I created this whole book and all the content and everything around Jamestown. I didn't know that this was what was going to happen, with this book, because I started from Jamestown, Virginia, on a very innocuous note, and particularly when Jamestown, Virginia also read a proclamation to honor me, to honor the book, and to honor the relationship between Jamestown, Virginia and Jamestown, Accra. I thought it was great.
This town has been a hotbed for political activity dating back to 1673, when the Gamanche Okaikwe made political decisions that had profound impact on the fortunes of Jamestown till date. The two major political parties in Ghana, the NPP and the NDC, have strong roots in the area. Jamestown's long and episodic history has left many monuments and architectural masterpieces. The plan by government to construct a modern fishing harbor in the area has led to calls to ensure these historic monuments are not sacrificed for modern architecture.
Now, I chose an African child because, most of those who are adults will probably have made up their minds about themselves, because they've been to schools, and they've got some ideas in them that are difficult to change. Imagine that we want to write speeches and everybody wants to quote an American or a British or European leader who said it. So you ask yourself, what about the African leaders? Why don't we quote them? Why don't we research them? Why don't we find out about them? It's because we are lazy.
For the forts and castles, apart from the Cape Coast Castle and a few others, many are either poorly maintained or have been left to rot away. How many forts and castles does Ghana have?
We have 28 documented forts and castles that are listed as World Heritage Sites. All the 28, they were listed in various degree of conservations and states of conservation. At listing, some were fairly in good condition, some were in good condition, some were in partial ruins, and some were just listed as sites of memory because they were visible traces that the fort actually existed. For example, if you go to Fredericksburg, which is in the Old Ningo, it was listed as a space with traces.
Let's go to the Volta region, Keta to be specific. This is Fort Presenstein, built by the Danish, located in Keta. It was used in the slave trade. Fort Presenstein lies east of the Volta River. The fort has been designated as a World Heritage Site. Fort Presenstein is almost lost due to the impact of the sea erosion.
Presenstein was listed as a facility fairly in good condition or partial ruins, but as we speak today, for several years there was a warning from the World Heritage based on their monitoring as to how we can prevent the defense wall, because the sea was gradually washing away part of it. But as it stands now, yes, part of it is remaining, and the remaining part too has been taken by sea, and the defense wall fortunately is constructed.
The Museums and Monuments Board is holding on to a thin line of hope that its fortunes will turn around.
We only hope that things will change, and that's the only hope we can have. But as to whether the institution itself and staff and management, whoever is have friends of the museum, everybody is worried that this is where we find ourselves. But hopefully, we are a very hopeful people, as the inertia for humanity to always surmount its problems is very, very high. I don't think staff of GMMB have lost that yet. So we're still hoping that things will change, and it will change quickly, and we'll see how this seeming identity crisis in which we come in on the museum will play the desired role in letting us rediscovering who we really are as Ghanaians and inspiring us to want to achieve more.
It takes a long time to get to the point where these things have gone. If you take, for example, the establishing law or act or policy of the museum, this was way in the 60s. It hasn't seen any reform. And so the idea, the fact that the president has asked that we do a reform, and the committee with people like Professor Yensu and co in there, shows that everybody is concerned that we do something about this thing. So I'm quite hopeful. I mean, for example, in the discussions under the World Bank project, the Ghana Tourism Development Project, the Museums and Monuments Board has featured aggressively in it, and how we can improve, especially the National Gallery, which is closed down. I know it's almost complete.
Preservation of historic sites and monuments is important. They are part of our history. For Kojo Yanka, Ghana risks losing its identity if nothing is done to address the deteriorating state of museums and monuments.
We are losing so much, and it's my fear is that there will be time. Well, maybe we are even in that time already. Our children will only look out there for role models. It's sad.
As the saying goes, the more you know about the past, the better you are prepared for the future. But with the lack of commitment to preserve the nation's museums and monuments, our past is gradually fading away. The hope is that government will take concrete steps in order for Ghana not to lose the remaining edifices, which tells about where and how far we as a people have come. Alfred Okonsi, TV3, Accra.
Gada